This week on SorareDownunder. So let's just forget that we ever even mentioned the four-man threshold, Robin.
But it's impossible. Like,
Shut
what
up.
is
Sorare, just shut up.
what is try to
We're on, baby.
Carol Metz, let's go.
Carol Metz. G'day, mates. Well, the dust has settled on one of the bigger weeks in the SorareDownunder world. The decision to sell the gallery last week obviously came with a lot of fanfare, a lot of, shocked listeners and viewers out there. Alistair, I guess last weekend kind of summed up my Sorare journey as it has been so far. 4 greens and still missing out the rewards. Oh boy, am I going to miss that feeling?
Yeah. I guess people liked the episode. They're happy that you're out of the running. They're happy they don't have to compete against you every week. Another whale bites the dust, Everyone's just gone up a few hundred spots in the leaderboard now that you're out of the way.
Yeah, the competition for tier 5s has now dropped significantly. But to be honest, I had 85 from Castiles, 72 from the GOAT show Sasaki, and of course, I was like, I'm on here. We're off to an absolute flyer. It was 62 to Otamendi, and then I had Reynoso with the captaincy armband and Theo Bongonda to go, and I was feeling pretty confident, and I was like, this is really nice. What a good way to finish my time in the rares. I'll go out with a nice win, go out with a bang. Wouldn't that be lovely? But of course, I tuned into the Minnesota game. Reynoso missed 2 great chances, woke up to see Bongonda did nothing, and all of a sudden, I'm ending up empty-handed.
Yeah, and it wasn't even like one of your players made a mistake. Reynoso still got 65, with no decisive, nothing to shake a stick at. Bongonda still got 40 odd, just didn't score a goal or get an assist in a pretty bad loss for Spartak. But just getting on the pitch isn't enough anymore. I remember thinking to myself when you had that start, I was like, it would just be. Of course, you decide to sell your gallery and you have one last hurrah and everyone just smashes it. And then you're like, oh shit, maybe I've made a terrible decision. But turns out, no, you've made the right decision. Yeah. And they're all gone.
I'd be lying if
you haven't sold.
No, I haven't sold everyone, which, we'll talk about a little bit later about the whole process of trying to sell a gallery. But before we go into that, Alistair, we'll talk about how your game week fared. Firstly, the weekend, then the midweek as well.
Yeah. Look, my run of hitting super rare thresholds has continued, which I'm happy about. Don't get me wrong. That's great. More money in the kitty. Poor decision making on my part. I remember making my lineups for last weekend, and I was like, well, this is my strongest lineup, but it didn't fit in any of the cap modes. So I was like, I'm going to have to put in All-Star. And I think I've just got I'm low on confidence at the moment where I'm like, I can't compete in All-Star, which is the whole reason I moved to Super Rares in the first place, was to really focus on trying to get some good positions in All-Star. But, didn't quite trust my gut there. And I thought, I'll put out a good 270 team and I'll, Darwin Quintero, he's got a pretty low L15, so I'll whack him in a 270 team and should be good to go. Sure enough, 4 of my players did really well. Quintero did not do anything. And of course, the person that I would have put in there as my striker in All-Star Rare, which in All-Star Super Rare, Heung-min Son, banged out a 95 or something like that. So I would have done relatively well in All-Star if I'd just kind of backed myself. And I guess I'm a bit torn because the Sorare Data lineup builder has this new function where it tells you your kind of your lineup score. I don't know if you've played with that around yet, but it gives you based on where you're putting the team, the players you've put in, it tells you this is an 83 ranked, 83 score, and that's good. So you should be happy with that. And I got the highest score in the 270, so I was like, yeah, I'll go with that. Rather than just kind of going, these are my 5 best players, where do they go? Do you know what I mean?
Keep it simple, stupid. Great advice. Hurts my feelings every time.
I think I need to go back to basics of just which of my 5 players have the best matchups, have the best kind of fixtures, are in the best position to bang? Where do they go? If they fit in a cap mode, great. If they don't try and like take good players out to fit them in. I think that's the moral of the story.
It's definitely something that I've had troubles with in the past, is trying to squeeze out an extra lineup and potentially compromising 2 lineups just for the sake of getting another chance to win. And I know since you've shrunk your gallery size to the super rares, you probably haven't had that issue as much as back when you had your rare gallery with, 5, 6, 7 lineups a weekend. But it is something we fall into the trap of, because you go, well, I've got a chance. I've got an extra chance. And yeah, I just think that is a really interesting point, because once you do have that bigger gallery, it is something that you do have to prioritize. And I just think that you've got to put your strongest lineup out, and whatever you can get on the side of that, that's your golden ticket.
That's right. And I mean,
So you're a silly boy.
As we speak right now, we are midway through a midweek, and I started brilliantly. Clearance off the line from Otamendi. He's back where he belongs, in the high 70s, early 80s. And then today, it gets to about the 75th minute. Brad Stuver's on 97 points. I'm going, I've been here before. I've read this book. Sure enough, holds out DC, clean sheet for Stuve, 97 points in my Cap 240 Super Rare team. So currently I'm sitting on like 198 points from my keeper and defender. Here we go. We're on. And sure enough, rain delay in the Dallas Colorado game. So my striker is now just back in his hotel room, fast asleep. Pretty sure they're not going to postpone it to tomorrow. So I'm screwed, basically. So even the weather hates me. I can't get a win any which way.
Stop that! Stop that! Go on, clear off! Go on, go away! Go away! Bloody weather.
What about the 4-man Threshy, Alistair? Could the 4-man Threshy be the key here?
Well, the 4-man Threshy is on, Simon, but we don't talk about the 4-man Threshy, because you know what happens when we talk about the 4-man Threshy. The 4-man Threshy gods get wind of that and they strike you down. So let's just forget that we ever even mentioned the 4-man Threshy, all right?
Nick Minute.
Anyway, now on to mystery jerseys, Alistair. What have you made of the new drop? Have you? You're in plain clothing as we record this episode right now, so I'm assuming no mystery jersey has made its way onto Australian shores just yet.
No, no. I'm in my civvies today. I feel like the rotation's getting a little bit stale. I do need to get some fresh juice in, some freshly squeezed. Look, I put a poll out on Twitter or X. During the week about signed mystery jerseys versus just plain mystery jerseys. And I'm not sure what your thoughts are, but I don't have any interest in a signed jersey. Like, unless it's a team that I really love, and I don't think there is a team that I love so much that I would, like, frame a jersey of theirs, So basically, if you get a signed jersey of a team you don't even know, that's cool, but, like, you can't wear it. You can't wear a jersey to football training with the fucking signatures all over it. And, I mean, I guess you could sell it, but otherwise... So, I, for one, I'm all for plain mystery jerseys. What do you think?
I concur, but can we just double back to what you just said? So, basically, what you're telling me is that the Melbourne City jersey that I got individually, personally signed by Matthew Leckie is a complete waste of space.
Watch this, Lise. You can actually pinpoint the second when his heart rips in half. And now.
Worst birthday gift ever. I should have got you a plain Central Coast Mariners kit.
On me.
Is that what you're saying?
Well, okay, I'll be honest. It's the fact that it's on the back and down the bottom makes it wearable, but I still couldn't. I have not worn it to training or five-a-side, because if someone's like, "Is that like a signed jersey?" then my career's over. So look, I do love the Matt Leckie signed jersey. It's very special to me, and I wear it on the podcast all the time. But it's just one signature too many.
All right, I'll text Matthew, say, look, sorry, I know I took up your time. I took away your time with your kids and family to sign this personal jersey for my brother, but Alice doesn't want it. I take it all back. That's fine, whatever. But, I mean, look, I do agree with the signed jerseys. I must concur. It was just a little bit of a dagger to the heart when I heard those words come out of your mouth.
But it's a team I like, at least. If you just given me a jersey of a team, some random team from the Premier League, I'd probably be like, do you even love me at all?
Do you love me?
Fair enough. Fair enough. And, I mean, let's talk about the elephant in the room, Alistair. Me trying to sell my gallery at the moment. It's been a kind of a weird process trying to sell the gallery because it's not exactly mapped out or written down how you best go about that. You sort of have to go through Discord, message random people that you've never spoken to before and be like, hey, do you want to take all of my junk?
Yeah, I've done it twice now. I've sold all my limiteds and I've sold all my rares. I actually found it easy to find a buyer. Once I got over the fact that I was going to have to take, a fairly sizable discount. At first, I was like, I'd like to sell my gallery for 95% value, and everyone was just laughing me out the door. So once I kind of came to terms with that, it was pretty easy to kind of get someone to say, yes, I'll buy it. And then the trickiest part, and I mean, you're not up to this part yet, but the trickiest part is then the actual sale, because you can't transfer more than 10 cards at a time, I think. So there is a bit of an element of like trust involved where you have to be like, okay, I'm sending 10 of my cards and you're sending me some of the money you owe me, what's to stop you just taking those 10 and running? So
the secret ingredient is crime.
I think what I did with, I sold most recently to Roddy Boss, and I can recommend him to anyone out there who's looking to sell up. He basically, I think the first offer he sent through, there's a few too many of my like premium cards in there. I think I asked him, like, can you send another offer with a bit more of a balance of like shit players and good players so that I feel a bit more comfortable about just giving you these cards and not getting the full amount of money left? Because what I didn't want to end up with was he takes my best cards, gives me some of the money, and then leaves me with all the shitters. So, but it all worked out fine, and I think the gallery buyers have a reputation to uphold. So, yeah, I think I said to you the other day, like, maybe do a bit of due diligence and ask around and see who's had good experiences with gallery buyers and get some Google reviews up your sleeve.
Yeah, because I had been in talks with Roddy Boss, but he doesn't have much interest in my gallery because we went sort of down a different route when trying to sell my cards. Is I sold a lot of my top guys just on the secondary market and people snap bought them. It was great because I didn't get too much of a haircut on their prices, but what it has left me is everyone who I'm messaging is going, mate, you've just got shit cards there. I'm never going to be able to sell these on. So I do fear, Elsa, that I might be stuck with these cards forever.
I think if the price is right, I think if someone, and I think we could both agree that, like, even if someone comes in and says, look, I'll give you 68% of the value of the rest of these cards, that's better than nothing. So I think you'll find a buyer eventually. I guess the other option you have up your sleeve is just, putting all of those cards on the market at a pretty significant, 80% discount and just selling them one by one. It's not impossible. And the other thing I guess you could do if you're not like desperate to get every little penny out of the account is all those kind of shitters that you can't sell, just keep them in your gallery, keep listing them, and eventually you might sell them. If not, I don't know. It's a tough one.
Yeah, I just kind of regret it a little bit because I would have liked a clean break and just being able to get it over and done with. But I mean, yeah, like you said, there's still people out there, so I'm sure if I just keep, willing to negotiate. And like you said, it is funny when you first start it, you're like, that's it, I'm getting 85, 90%. And then by the end, you're like, look, I'll take 60%. Just take them, please. I don't want them anymore.
I'm giving them away.
I was looking at some of my cards, and there is some god-awful cards in there. Like, whoever takes it is going to have some work cut out with them to get rid of them.
Just a little related segue. This reminds me of when I was moving house a few years ago, and we had this couch that we had paid for. We bought it from the previous guy who lived there, so it was like already in the house. And we paid, I don't know, like $700 or something for this couch, which is, you either buy a new couch or you just get one off the side of the street. Anyway, trying to move this couch, and like our moving out day was coming up. I think we were going overseas, and I was like putting it up on Facebook Marketplace with the lofty intention of like, I'm just going to get back what I paid for this couch. $700, let's go. No bites. Okay, $500. Look, let's be reasonable. $500. D-Day is coming closer. $300, $150, $50. Okay, it's free if you can come and get it. And then I got a bidding war between two people who both wanted it at the very reasonable price of free. Someone offered me $50. I was like, it's yours. Come and get it, please. And that, my friends, is negotiating 101.
How much for the quarter? Why would I sell a quarter? It's worth 25 cents. I'm not going to go lower than
24 cents.
Oh, shit.
I don't know
Anyway.
how you're not a highly rich investment banker with this kind of, businessman-like attitude. Real Wolf
Take
of
the
Wall
emotion
Street
out of it.
vibe.
That's the key.
Yeah. And Ulster over the weekend as well. I mean, he was my rare boy for a brief period. But can I say, Colin Castiles, despite the impending move from Wolfsburg, the boy's putting on a masterclass, and so is Jonas Windy Boy Wind. This is getting ridiculous now, Ulster. He is banging in goals for fun.
Are you shit at football? Are you some miserable washed-up loser who can't find the back of the net to save his life? Do all your teammates laugh at you and call you names like brown-haired idiot? Then maybe you should try dyeing your hair blonde. Blonde hair is guaranteed to make you at least 368% better at football. Before you know it, your teammates will be saying things like, great goal, and cool hair, and oh, my girlfriend really wants to sleep with you now and I'm very upset about that. Blonde hair. Look cool, play cooler. This ad has been paid for and sponsored by Jonas Windy Boy Wind.
And I still can't sell his rare for love nor money. The Wolfsburg boys. I think it's time. It's been a while since we've had an update from the boys, so let's do it.
Here for underdog, underdog.
Wolfsburg are on fire. 2-0 win on the weekend. Not only is Jonas Windy Boy Wind back in the goals, 2 goals again. He is absolutely on fire. Colin Castiles is making saves. Clean sheet. Loving the look of the team. I watched some highlights. Everything looks like it's flowing smoothly. Probably the most exciting thing from the weekend, Big Maxi Arnold. Everyone thought he was done for. Back with I think it was 85 with all AA. Absolutely smashed it. So very promising signs from the Wolfsburg boys. And they actually won me a Tier 3 limited in Cap 240. I remember waking up to the score, seeing that I'd scored I think it was 385 points in Cap 240. And I was like, wow, that's a really good score. I must be up near the top here. Nope. Pretty low level Tier 3.
Disappointed!
$8 worth. So $8, I mean, that's almost a pin each, almost. So, we'll put that in the kitty. But yeah, great to see the Wolfsburg boys pulling their weight, bringing in some prizes. But man, have fun in limiteds, man, because I don't think you're going to win anything.
I was just thinking, you're not really selling the dream to me, mate.
Yeah, I had everything go right, and yet mid-level Tier 3, $8.
But wasn't it fun though, Ulster? Because it's just fun. It's just fun. It's fun in the limiteds.
Yeah,
having
that's
a
true.
fun time.
That is true. I do it for the love.
I still reckon Sorare's motto should be just shut up and enjoy it, or just shut up and play.
Yeah, shut up. Just shut up. Sorare, just shut up. I bet you Nicholas wants to say that at least 4 or 5 times a week. He just wants to tweet out, hey, just shut up.
Now, also, who did we win? Who was the prize possession that's come into the gallery? Do you remember his name?
Okay, so it was a Geraldo Becker who plays for Union Berlin. As luck would have it, the morning that I opened him up as my reward, he scored a double in the Champions League against Braga. So I kind of took advantage of that and sold him for the $8, as mentioned earlier. My strategy with the limiteds, I've decided for the time being, apart from buying a Wolfsburg pin, obviously, is any rewards I win, I'm basically just going to sell them and then go and buy the 2023 Tottenham player of equivalent value. And I'm going to try and build out that Tottenham collection that I've got. Because I've got a nice little stack there. I've now got them all in the nice shiny new 2023 cards. So I've got Vicario, Romero, Madison, Heung-min Son, and Basuma. And I want to just, build a little collection around them. And the way I look at it, like, there was I think the $8 equivalent in the Tottenham collection was like Mate Sarr, I think. So I just went and bought him. I was like, yep, I basically won. The way I'm looking at it is, anything I win, I'm going to translate into Tottenham. And that way I'm just winning Tottenham players every week.
That's a good way to look at it. Just put it in something and fool yourself that you've pulled someone that you actually know and like.
Exactly.
You can go to sleep being like, I won a Sarr.
I can't believe I won a Sarr. That's just, what are the chances of that? I specifically wanted one.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
So that's my kind of strategy. So I'm feeling pretty good about that.
I like that. Now, Alistair, obviously, with me going into the limiteds, as you sort of touched on, even when things do go right, you're still probably not going to win. So strategy is now key for me. I can't just be, throwing in boys and just hoping for the best. I'm going to have to start from the ground up and be a little bit more strategical about who I'm buying, where I'm playing them, what I'm doing with my gallery. Now, have you got some advice for me, for the listeners, for the watchers all around the globe? Can you give us some insight into what's the best kind of game plan for me moving forward?
Yeah, okay. So I've been thinking about this a lot because for a number of reasons. Number one was watching Kieran Trippier bang out hundreds over the last couple of weeks. Famously, I sold him in the off season. I think seem to be constantly a victim of like suffer one thing, learn from that, apply those learnings to my strategy moving forward, and then have that turn around and flip and bite me in the face.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
So at the end of last season, I'd picked up a Kieran Trippier relatively cheap when I made my move over to Super Rares. And my thought was, look, he had a great season. There's every chance that next season something changes. You can't rely on last season's form to carry over into this season's form. I also was a bit worried that they were going to sign someone that was going to take over sets, in which case, he loses a big part of his value. Bit of an assumption on my part, but I moved over to a Nicolas Otamendi super rare because he had just re-signed as the captain of Benfica, and he's reliable. I just knew I wasn't expecting him to like have a great fluctuation in form. I was like, I know he's locked in. I know what I'm going to get from him next year, so I'll buy him. And in the super rare division, someone like an Otamendi used to be all you needed. You just needed someone who could bang out 60 to 65 every week. And if you bang 5 of those in a lineup, most weeks you're going to do pretty well. That seems to have changed quite dramatically in the last couple of months. Otamendi is not really the kind of sure thing that he used to be. He's still putting up good scores, but unfortunately those good scores just aren't enough anymore to really propel you up into the big leagues. So with you making the move into limited, I thought it'd be a good opportunity to look at each of the different positions that you're going to have to pick up and kind of what are some of the characteristics you should maybe look for when you're making those choices.
Yeah, so for example, I mean, if you start with the goalkeepers, when I picked up the Cohen Casteels, I remember I was comparing him to some Division 2 goalkeepers, and I think it might have been the Real Sociedad goalkeeper, who's very solid, was pretty, safe bet. It will sort of get you 50 each week. But I think I went the Cohen Casteels. Yes, he was more likely to concede 3, especially when they versed the likes of Dortmund and those kind of teams. But I feel like even though I've sold Castiles, I've been really happy with that purchase because, yes, he has the odd bad game, but when he does keep the clean sheet, he's not just getting 60, he's putting out 85 points.
Yep.
And I feel like this weekend's the perfect example. I know it's in rares, but it's even more so in limiteds, where you can get 60 points from all your players, even pushing 65, 70 points from all your players, and it's still, you're not even getting in the rewards. So I think it is better to have those guys. Yes, there's going to be some heartbreak, but they've got the higher ceiling.
Yeah, agree. And I think, let's look at Castiles as a bit of a case study. Obviously, there is a risk now that he could go somewhere and die because we know he's leaving Wolfsburg. But I think the best things about that purchase for you were he plays in a strong team, but not so strong that he's not going to face any shots, So as he said, he's going to rack up the AA most weeks, which is good. And even if he concedes, he's not necessarily like taking you out of contention. Whereas a 30 from your keeper, that's, game week over. Because he plays in the Bundesliga and he is an established keeper for a strong team. So the chances of him making a move that are not favorable, it's pretty slim. Like, he's not like a young kind of under 23 hotshot keeper that's going to get a move to Real Madrid and sit on the bench for a couple of years. And he's not going to make a move. He's either going to move sideways or down in terms of the competition that he's facing. So I think he was a pretty safe bet on that. And I'm not going to bet anything, but I would assume that his next move, wherever he goes next year, he should hopefully be at a team around about that same level, whether it's in a different league or, he's getting up there in terms of age, so maybe he takes a step back and plays in a kind of easier league. Who knows? So I think he was really good for that side of things as well. And you don't have that risk of him, like, the second division keepers. You've always got that risk of if they succeed, then they're most likely going to get promoted, and then you've got a keeper for the worst team in the league above getting hammered every week. So you're kind of just relying on getting results this season, which you can talk about whether that's a good strategy or not in itself.
And also he's a quality player as well, compared to that of a Division 2 keeper. I've always said that you're buying those guys and they're expensive because of their SO5 scores, but because they're a no-name keeper, if anything unfavorable happens towards them, they're completely worthless once again. Whereas Cohen Castiles, he's got a bit of prestige about him.
Yeah, that's right. So I think when you're picking your keeper for your team, I think the first question you need to ask yourself is, are you going to stack?
You've got to. I've come full circle. You have to stack.
Yeah. So now the second question you need to ask is, do I stack around a keeper or do I stack around a defender? Do you choose your defender first and then stack your keeper, or the other way around?
I think you got to go the defender first, because at the end of the day, while there are better keepers than others, goalkeepers are a bit average across the board. There's not a whole heap separating the top tier goalkeepers from those in the next bracket below. So I feel like getting that really good defender and then whoever your goalkeeper is alongside that's probably what I'd go.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, in that mind, then I guess we should talk about defenders, because I think goalkeepers, like, it's the worst. It's going to be the worst part of you kind of making your new strategy in limiteds. Like, yeah, I guess if you've got the budget, you would probably be smart to go for someone like a Ter Stegen or something from Barcelona, because it's like, plays for one of the best teams in the world, very, very rarely concedes 3 and does seem to have pretty good AA. I don't know enough about Barcelona, but I'm assuming they like play out of the back and, he doesn't lose any points for just hoofing it downfield like some other, less quality keepers. But yeah, let's talk about defenders, because I think that's probably the best way around to do it. So, like I said, Otamendi's season is over. I love Nicholas. Don't get me wrong. It's if he's the last man in your lineup and you just need him to bang out a 60, you feel good. You feel safe. You've been there. We've both been there before. But he's very rarely going to get into that 90, 100 territory, which I think, especially in limiteds, you're going to need. So I think you're going to have to go for a fullback. I think centre-back season is done. You want that player that ideally can still rack up some good AA, But most importantly, I think you want one that's decisive capable. If they take sets, amazing. If they're, one of those kind of wingers that gets up the field and gets in the box, even better. Obviously, the downside of that is that you're going to have those games where they score 25, but you're playing for fun, so who gives a shit?
Yeah, exactly. And I always feel it feels like a little warm safety blanket if a player has good AA. So if I can get someone who's capable of, and I know that when they do get that rare decisive, that they're going to be pushing 100, that's exciting.
Absolutely.
That's why I'm going to be honest. That's why I love Claudio Bravo. I know it's a love-hate relationship, but with Claudio Bravo, he's exciting because I know it could be 20 points, but I like the fact that when Claude steps out in that pitch, he could set the world on fire.
The problem with Claude's is that he doesn't score goals. He very rarely gets decisives of any kind. So the games that we're waiting for are the games where he's just on an absolute heater and he is just eating up tackles and interceptions, which it's hard to count on that. And poor old Claude's like, it's exciting when it happens, but it's happening less and less frequently for sure. So we've got up on here the list of our players that we've got available. Grimaldo, I think his stats, he's been on a bit of a heater, but you could say he's been on a heater for a year and a half now. I don't think he's necessarily going to be able to keep that up like he did at Benfica. I don't know. Leverkusen have looked really good, but still yet to see whether they can keep that up, whereas Benfica, obviously, they're always going to be pretty dominant. So I think if we look at like L40 decisives, who's got the most? Yep, Grimaldo, De Kuyper. Yeah, so you definitely... Schlotterbeck could be an interesting one. Now, Schlotterbeck gets a lot of clearances off the line, and this is another point I wanted to make. You can actually kind of... Because there are some defenders where their role, for whatever reason, is they do end up on the line a lot. And there are certain players like Schlotterbeck. I know Boschnowitz at Heerenveen is another one that get a Koundé at Barcelona as well. Just seem to get like a ridiculous amount of clearances off the line. So that's one you can look at it for as well. If you don't have the budget to buy like your Trent Alexander-Arnolds, you could potentially try and find someone who's going to get decisives in other ways.
And I feel like a clearance off the line is one of the easiest decisives if you're looking to rely on someone. Is that? Oh, that's probably a bad shout. Actually, I take that back.
Well, it's purely just luck based. There's no skill involved really in a clearance off the line, if we're being honest.
That's why
you're either standing there.
That's why I immediately regretted my statement. I take it all back.
So looking at the prices of these guys, not too bad. Douglas Santos, he's not actually he's a fullback. He plays left back, I think. He is obviously probably the best player on here just because he just dominates for Zenit. He scored 100 last week in a 3-1 loss, so that kind of tells you everything you need to know about him. Yeah, absolute crusher. Although you can't really stack him with anyone because I don't think their keeper has a card at the moment. Ruben Dias at Manchester City could be a good shout. There he is, obviously, the GOAT, Sho Sasaki, although he's only got a couple of games left, unfortunately. Yeah, there's your boy Thiago Silva. I think you mentioned him in your kind of initial brainstorming session. He is cheap. Don't know how many clean sheets they're going to keep necessarily, but could be an option. Either of the Hernandez brothers could be a very good shout. They seem to get, decisives relatively well and obviously play on very dominant teams. Alderweireld gets a lot of goals for some reason. He's just always in the box on corners and seems to be good in the air. He got a lot of goals for Spurs, I remember, when he played for them. So, yeah, there's lots of good options. But I think, for you definitely need that go big or go home kind of player. If you've got the budget to get one that can do it more consistently, by all means, go for it.
Now, Alstish, we talk about the most exciting player of any team. It's very well publicised. We love a main man.
We love a main man.
But before we jump into the mids, I actually have to go check. I have a roast in the oven, and I just need to check that I'm not burning the house down. So I know it was netball, but
Roast
be right
break.
back. Roast break. Okay, can confirm roast is ticking along nicely.
Lovely. How's that crackling?
Fucked up the crackling, so we don't talk about that. That's all right.
No. All right.
The
Join
best
in
bit.
next week for another roast break. Can't wait. So we're talking about main men.
Yep, that's it. Main men.
Talking about
We
main
love a
men.
main men.
Yeah, look, I mean, I don't think I'm going to like break any new ground here talking about what you should look for in a midfielder, but I think, I think in terms of what you're going to do, I think it really does depend on what your budget is and how much you're kind of, willing to spend and whether you want to go down the route of trying to pick up bargains versus just like proven performers. But I think midfield is one where you absolutely do need someone who is a proven performer that is just involved in everything. Jonas Hoffman is a great example at Leverkusen at the moment. He takes all corners. He's not just like a player who kind of sits back and, doesn't do much, but then comes in and takes sets. That's not really what you want. You want someone who is in and around the box, who's creating chances, and if they've got sets as well, that's exactly what you want. Like James Maddison is a great example. Everything goes through him. Obviously, Veerman is probably out of the price range, but he is just a player where it's like everything goes through him. He makes everything happen, and because he's on a dominant team, stuff's always happening. Because I'm in the super rares, I've had to try and pick up those players that are a little bit more kind of on the value side of things. So, I've got like a Kadri at Kortrijk who, everything goes through him, but because he plays for Kortrijk, it doesn't happen all the time, and he can really ruin a lineup. As we've said, you just have to get 5 decisives these days. So, players like Kadri, Romans for Go Ahead Eagles, like he is a really great value player, but he could ruin your lineups, every other week because he just plays for a poor team. I do also think that applies to James Ward-Prowse. He's proving me wrong every week at the moment, but I do think that eventually things will calm down. And even though West Ham are a good team, I think there's just going to be plenty of weeks where he's banging out 40s. So ideally, you Madisons, who are some other players. Obviously, you've got the superstars, but I think you want to be aiming for like a top 4, top 6 team in any strong league. And you want to be looking at, ideally, well, they have to take all sets really, because you just got to give yourself absolutely every chance to get a decisive.
That's definitely something that I've learned is I'll get a main man. I'm like, this is amazing. He's racking up AA. I think Emmanuel Reynoso is probably a good example. And I know we've spoken about him quite a lot on the podcast, but the amount of Minnesota games I watch where he's putting it on a platter, but if they don't have the quality around them, then yes, you're probably going to get those games where he gets 60 points purely on AA. But if he's on a better team, that's when he's turning those into 80s, 90s, 100s more regularly. And I mean, that's why Carl Gill was so dominant probably 2 years ago for New England Revolution, because he had the likes of Buxer and co around him. Whereas at the moment, he's still a solid card, like still a solid player, but he's putting in the service, but there's no one there to finish the job. And that's where you're not getting those assists that you desperately need.
That's a very good point. And thinking about who they're feeding is a very important thing as well. Like, Kevin De Bruyne is a great example. He is putting in just these dimes for Erling Haaland, and he is just putting them away, week after week. Obviously, De Bruyne is injured at the moment, but
he's not anymore. Yeah,
is he back? Is he?
No, he's not. He's out for ages. He's been out for all this season.
Oh yeah. That's what. Yeah. I thought. So I guess that raises another question of like, do you kind of have like an attacking stack? I don't think so. I don't think you necessarily, I've had them before where I've had a forward and a mid or 2 mids from the same team, and you'd think it's going to happen all the time. It just so very rarely happens, weirdly enough. So I don't necessarily think that's like a key to success, but I think getting yourself a main man. And now, a couple of months ago, I probably would have said that what I would do in my ideal team is have 100 capable player who just is, decisive, dangerous, and can really go big, and pair them with someone like a Basuma is a good example at Spurs. Who's another one? John Motor at Miami used to be this. I'm just pulling from my own gallery. Players that
Tom
basically,
Hay.
Tom Hay, exactly. Zaruki when he was at 20, like players like that where they're just going to get that 65. Sometimes they'll hit 70 with AA only, and they're just defensive workhorses in the middle of the field. There, might get the occasional decisive to bang that up to an 80 or a 90. I'm moving away from that. I think, especially in limiteds, I think you just need two absolute killers that can score hundreds on their day. Because I think, unfortunately, if you've got a De Bruyne and he goes out and bangs 100, and then you've got Tom Hay and he bangs out a 60, we just know that's not good enough anymore. So you want like De Bruyne banging out 100, Trippier banging out 100, and then you've got Bruno Fernandes getting his 96 for Man U.
Right.
Just a 4-point
cool.
deduction there.
So just need 200s, 80, at least 80 plus from my goalkeeper. So he needs to keep the clean sheet, but also have about 10 saves. And then I need a forward to score, and not only score, either need to score the brace or have lots and lots of AA. That's cool. That sounds pretty achievable.
In theory, yeah.
Yeah.
At risk of sounding like PSU fans, just go out and buy like the world's best players, and you'll be fine. Very simple. No, I think to distance myself from that, I don't think you need to go out and buy the absolute best players in the world. I was just trying to use them as examples, but I think you need to find those players that, like of Castiles, play for strong teams. Everything goes through them. They don't have to be your absolute superstars in order for you to get really good points, but I think you've just got to tick off those boxes. And I think I'm assuming you're probably going to have two mids instead of, you could do the two defenders thing, I suppose, but I don't know. It's up to you, I suppose. But I think if you are going two mids, rather than the defensive AA beast and the all-out attack guy, I think you just got to go two all-out attackers.
And I think the way I could work it as well is if I don't want to go out and buy two superstar midfielders, absolute proven guns, I could get one proven gun potentially, and maybe get two or three of your players like your Kadris, who are the main man but on the weaker teams, and then rotate those three on who has the best matchup. So the weeks that when Kadri does have the really easy Farmers League team, slot them in, and I feel like he, on that game week, is just as valuable as a proven gun with a not-so-friendly matchup.
Yeah, a very, very good point. That's a very smart way to look at it. Yeah, for sure. Spend that rather than getting Bruno and KDB, get KDB and four main men from weaker teams. I love that idea.
I'm learning.
Hey, I'm new here. Let me just have a nice little stretch going in here.
What about forwards, Elster? What do I do in the forwards? Because I still think that forwards are the hardest position in Sorare.
Yep, 100% the hardest.
I feel like it's like they can score goals, but yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, there's just not that many that really crush AA at the moment. Let me just have a look here. Or they're crushing AA, but they don't score any goals. Berardi's killing it at the moment, although I don't know really anything about him, unfortunately. To be honest, like there are some really good forward options in second division. We'll talk about like choosing your division soon, but like there are some players likes of Fabian Rees. Where's another one? Baris Atik has been great. There's a couple more that I know. Vicente down in La Liga too. There's some really good players there because they are, a lot of the times you talk about those matchups like if you're the best player in that second division team, chances are you're going to be involved in a lot of things, kind of like the Tadic effect at Ajax. So, often you can get players like Baris Atik who have scores that are comparable with some of your Champ Europe guys for a fraction of the price. So if you were going for like an all-star team, if you wanted to save a bit of money, I think you can get some really strong AA performers in that second division. And it's usually because they are, like I said, the best player on the team. So they just do everything. They take all the sets, they take corners, they take pens. That's obviously, goes without saying. You need to find someone who can do that.
I will say maybe I guess it comes down to whether I want to focus on a division or if I want to go down the All-Star route, because that's the carrot on the stick, I guess, is that you can get these guys, second division, combined guys from different leagues. But I think we've spoken about in previous podcasts is my desire to probably target a certain division or a certain competition.
Yep, totally. Just quickly on the forward thing as well, I think it'd be worth doing a bit of digging to find out what decisives they're getting. Similar to how I was saying with the defenders, like you can find some gold with those players that just park themselves on the line and get clearances. You know, the biggest difference between Harry Kane and Luke de Jong is that Luke de Jong is just a goal poacher. He just scores goals. I mean, he's been getting some assists lately, whether it be like a tap in pass to someone. Whereas Harry Kane, Mbappe, Messi, they are true kind of providers as well. So they score goals, but they also can create not just assists, but like penalty area entries, big chances. They can create those. So I think looking into those kind of stats around do they create chances, not just score goals? I think that's crucial for picking your forward.
Does a player, if they rely on a lot of their goals coming from penalties, does that deter you from them at all? Like I know that Cucho Hernandez has been scoring a lot of pens for Columbus lately. He's still getting a decisive, but does that deter you from him at all?
I mean, Cucho is pretty great, and he does kind of get a lot of assists as well. He's just a step above everyone in the MLS, I think. So, I think if they're too reliant on pens, it's probably not a great idea. But in saying that, Daniel Gazdag is someone that, people always kind of, they give him shit like, oh, Daniel Gazdag is just a pen merchant, but he scores a lot of penalties. So I don't know what's going on, whether it's, obviously their forwards are doing something right in that their penalties are being, the defenders can't handle them. They're giving away penalties and Gazdag just steps up and bangs them in. So I think I would probably say that if you look at their goals and they're all penalties, that's probably not a great sign. But if they take penalties, I think that's got to be like a prerequisite. If you've got somebody who doesn't take pens, you're missing out on potentially like easy decisives every game.
They're the kind of weeks where your player doesn't have a great game, but they get bailed out by a penalty.
Yeah.
How often do you see that where, it's not going to be your week and they get bailed out by a penalty? Like, it happens all the time.
That's it. Okay. Cool. So let's talk about the division. So look, I mean, I don't think I blew anyone's minds there talking about what to look for in the position by position, but I think it's always important to revisit it. Obviously for you, just a disclaimer. I'm not going to recommend a single player to you this time around. Let's just see how this goes, because someone mentioned in the comments last week, they're like, what I'm getting from this is that everything Alistair tells you to do is a terrible idea, and basically he has ruined your Sorare career for the last 2 years. So let's try an experiment where I just shut the fuck up and you make your own decisions, and I'm sure you'll absolutely crush it.
Yeah, I can't wait to win every week, quickly progress through the super rares from the limited division. I mean, you're going to have to probably bite your tongue on a few occasions, though, because if there's a player I'm like, I think he's a really good player, I'm going to buy him, and you're going to be sitting there going, don't do it. But, hey, live by the sword, die by the sword.
All I can do is try and give you the theory and let you do with that what you will, because, pretty much every player I've recommended is something horrible has happened to them, so... yeah, let's avoid that. So divisions. Okay, so what I think you mentioned we briefly touched on it last week or whenever it was that we spoke about your kind of new plan, but I think you're right in saying that you really should focus on some divisions. I think the All-Star and cap modes, they're good, but I don't think that you should go into it prioritizing them just because they are, other people prioritize them, and because it's limited, there's always a cheat code. There's always, some LOL 15 player that's got a crazy fixture and people just go and buy him and they smash, and it's tricky. Whereas the divisions, you kind of know that you're just competing against other people in that division, and also it helps you kind of build a gallery a bit quicker as well, because the rewards you win will help you in that division, kind of give you more depth. So, have you had any kind of initial thoughts as to where you might want to be kind of playing?
I don't know if this is wrong, but I still think Champ Europe. I know I'm paying the price tag and you're up against some really, really quality opposition, but I just do feel that Champ Europe is not what it used to be. It doesn't have just the plethora of absolute smashes every given week.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Champ Europe has the benefit of, like, even if you win a tier 3 through 5, like, they're still, they're obviously good players if they're playing in those top 5 leagues. So you've got that benefit of, like, they could kind of, their situation could change and they could go to another team and become a really strong player, or they could move down a division, or, go to a weaker league and dominate. But also, I think they're easy to sell because they just have that prestige of being from a champion team. So, like, your tier 3s, tier 5s, they're always going to they're going to have a little bit more value than the guy that plays for Eupen that never gets off the bench. He's never going to be worth anything. So I think you might not win as much as you would in, say, second division Europe, but the cards you win will just have that little bit of extra value and a little bit of kind of extra liquidity, I suppose.
Yeah, 100%. And that's it. And that's what the problem that I've got at the moment is I've got all these guys that are absolutely no names. They aren't playing. And yeah, of course, no one's going to buy them. Why would you? So I just think moving towards that. And also, like you said, I think probably the biggest one is the fact that if they do get a move, they're probably going to go down a level. Whereas if I focused on Challenger, I feel like there's a real risk with that. If they're doing well in Challenger, often that means a move to Champion Europe, where they often aren't as strong or they die. So I think that plays a big part in it as well.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think that's, and I think Challenger, I think it is a bit overrated because, yes, you can get, I think the appeal of Challenger is that you can buy players who put up, like, premium scores, like Veerman, previously like Otavio, like the guys at Benfica. Those players, you can buy them at a bit of a discount to your Bellinghams, your Salahs, your Champ Europe guys. But like you said, anyone who's got a Veerman, I'm sure, is just terrified of the January transfer window because, he'll move to Burnley and then that might be the end of him. Maybe not. He might be good enough to make that step up, and we've certainly seen players that have done that. But so I think in the short term, yes, Challenger is appealing because it's like, yeah, well, I can go out and buy, like, the 5 best Challenger guys for half the price of decent Champ guys. But it's also, I think, just ridiculously competitive because on any given game week, there's like 8-9 Challenger teams that have AAA matchups and are just going to go out and absolutely smash. Whereas in Champ, it's a little bit more, it's a little bit more even, I guess, the real world competition. I guess you could say, like, Luton Town at the moment is the only team really where you're like, yeah, okay, my boys are playing Luton, it's on, So I think Challenger is probably one that I would steer clear of. I think your idea of going into Champ is a good one. Now, of course, that brings up, I guess, the flip side of that. America and Asia, obviously only 3 or 4 weeks left for both of those competitions. No value in the rewards you'll win. Not much utility because their season's ending, but you can get all the best players for next to nothing at the moment. So is that something you're tempted by?
Probably I think zig when people zag, maybe a couple of Japanese players for next season, because at the moment, obviously with the rewards and the whole Korean, fiasco at the moment, I feel like no one really wants to go in there. And if you do play, that's somewhere where you can go back to almost, it's like a time capsule to a year and a half ago where you put up a good score and you win. You can win a good card. So I feel like that could be something to target. Yeah. And like I've said last week, it's in a good time zone. Watch the boys.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Take me back to a year ago when Sorare was a little bit easier. Also, I guess the other strategy you could take with America and Asia, maybe not America, but definitely with Asia, is, whack a couple of stacks in All-Star and see what happens. Like, some of those players are still really, really good. If you can whack them in an All-Star team, who knows, you might do well. And then you're set for next year when you can roll them out in Asia and America in the actual divisions themselves, especially when the European season ends and that's what everyone wants to play. So I think that's definitely something you got to do, is at least have 6 or 7 players from Asia and America to roll out. one more division I guess we haven't touched on, which I don't think we've even thought about, is under 23, because that is still one where I do see the people who are prioritizing that do seem to win with some lower scores, and there isn't that real crop of absolutely dominating under 23s that there was. Mbappe, Donnarumma, like they're all old now. They're all has-beens. Is under 23 something you would be interested in?
Well, I mean, it'd put my scouting ability to the test. I feel like you have to really know the league, right, to be able to get those kind of guys. But I guess if I went Champ Europe, I mean, there's a lot of information about those kind of guys. It's not as if I'm scouting some Newell's old boy wonder kid.
Thomas Jacob.
I mean, I wonder, does under 23 have the same price tag that a Champ Europe guy would kind of have?
Possibly. I think the issue with under 23 is that there's not many under 23s in Champ. Like, you don't really have that crossover because the under 23s in Champion usually are like only just getting a look in the team. Aside from the absolute superstars, Musiala and Bellingham, etc. So you probably would need to go into like Challenger to pick up some of those under 23s who are like crushing it for Westerlo or whatever it might be. But then obviously you have that risk. So I remember I moved out of under 23s eons ago because I just hated buying them, seeing rumors, freaking out, panic selling, rinse and repeat. I didn't like that. But I think you can probably win a little bit more frequently under 23 because of the premium price tag and the fact that it is difficult to find those kind of gems.
Yeah, it could be something to look at. Probably not my number one preference, but again, maybe I need to start thinking outside the box. I mean, I'm sure you would be glad if you still had your Julian Alvarez.
Yeah, I mean, I would have, but I was never going to hold on to that card for the 2 years it took for him to finally come good. That was just never going to happen.
2 years on Sorare is a lifetime.
God.
I mean, also, just quickly before we sort of wrap up. Does international utility come into it? Because I'm going to be honest, I've never really paid much attention to it, but we've had a couple of international windows come and go, and it kind of did open my eyes to like, if I had my smarts about me and picked up a few guys, those, especially in these qualifiers, could be a golden opportunity to miss because there was some 8-0 drubbings that, you could have bought some players of.
Yeah, I think it. People, there's two frames of thought. You can either go, oh, look, the rewards aren't even that good in international breaks and, oh, it's shit. But if you're smart about it and you buy players that are just really good week to week and also happen to have international utility, your Griezmanns, you could look at quite a few of the like players who are going to go to AFCON later in the year for the Africa Cup of Nations. Jonas Windy Boy Wind. Like, you can pick up some of these players and it doesn't necessarily cost you anything more, but it means that you've got something to do in the international game weeks. And if you pick them in a way where you know what their fixtures are coming up, then yeah, you could do very well over that couple of weeks, which is coming up relatively quickly. So I think it definitely should be something you keep in mind. I don't think you should make all your decisions based on that, but if you're looking at a player and you're like, well, he also plays for Germany, brilliant.
I think it's probably just having the depth around it because I find most international game weeks, I've probably got 3 or 4 players, but not enough to make a full team.
Yeah. So I think keeper would probably be the first one. We're like, right, do I have a keeper that has international utility and does he fit my strategy? And if he does, fantastic. Because that's always the one where I'm like, I've got plenty of outfield players in the international break, but no keepers. Or I've got, a keeper playing for Peru.
And sometimes I get lulled into a false sense of security and I go, oh, well, I've got a defender and he's playing in the international break, so I can plug him in. I've got a lineup. But then I come to the realization that it's Karel Metz against Belgium and they lose 8-0 and he scores like 5 points.
Hey, don't you say a bad thing about our boy Karel.
But yeah, so I think that pretty much wraps it up, Alistair. What a way to end. Yeah, I guess that's sort of... Sorry. Lost the plot.
Just lost in a dream there, thinking about that roast, aren't you? Thinking about the roast.
I'm about the roast.
You got crackling
but
on
yeah,
the brain.
yeah, I better go.
I just watched the life like seep from your eyes. You were like, yeah, anyway, let's just
Bump the shutdown button.
I love it. All right. Are you going to have a team this weekend? Where are we at?
Well, I've still got to try and bloody sell my cards. No one wants them. I've got to sell the cards before I can make a team.
Okay, you're not going to take your money from the proceeds from your players that you've already sold and start putting a squad together?
No, it's going to be a clean break. I'm going to sell everything and then reassess and I can go from there. I think trust me, it just murkies the waters if I'm trying to have 1 foot in the limiteds and 1 foot trying to get out of the rares. So
That's
just gotta be
very
patient, Alistair.
That is very mature and brave and courageous of you, because God knows I wouldn't be able to have that. I'd have to put a team in.
You couldn't have 1 week out. No chance.
I mean, have you got a team of rares that are left that you can chuck out just in case? Have you got like the best of the battlers that you can roll out and it's all going to come together? Joe Willis, Mauricio Pereira, Francesco Conceição off the bench.
We're on, baby.
Carol Metz, let's go.
Carol Metz. It's Mets season.
Oh, I love it. Let's go Mets. All righty. On that note, on that brilliant pun, let's wrap it up. Cheers, mates. See you out there.
See you, mates.